Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Over It podcast. I am one of your hosts, Suzanne Kohlberg, joined today by Kristan Kershaw. And today, I'm super excited. We have a fabulous guest, Serena Hicks. I have been in Serena's orbit for about 18 months now, and it has been absolutely life-changing. So I'll hand it over to you, Serena, to introduce yourself.
Okay, thank you. Hello, new friends. I'm Serena Hicks. I'm recording this from Austin, Texas. I am a money mindset mentor and business coach, mashup, which is perfect because I'm also Black biracial, Scottish, Danish, Italian, in addition to half Black, mashup. So this is what I do. I mix up and mash up all the goodies, and that's what we do. But in my universe, I like to talk about money and the intersections between identity and racism, sexism, ageism. And in my world, I call it holy wow money. It's about having, moving, stewarding more and creating more for everyone else on the planet. It's not about accumulation. It's about creation and stewardship. And so I'm really happy to be here. Should I tell them what I'm over?
Yes. You've already beat us to the question. What are you over, Serena?
You prepped me. I'm over the struggle story. The struggle story. We all have one. I want to lead by example and make clear that when I am doing my inner work, which is, hopefully daily, sometimes we skip a day. But earlier today, before this recording, I was sure enough doing The Work by Byron Katie and was like, yep, there it is. There's my victim story. It's my favorite. It's personal. Maybe that's not your favorite, but it's such an interesting thing to me, how many of us who were socialized as women, humans who identify as non-binary, who were socialized as women, people of color, how we've, in my opinion, effectively been socialized to have this sort of belief that it's hard. We have to work twice as hard, oftentimes for half as much. And the struggle story is such a social norm. If I were to sit down with, hello, new friends listening, if we were all to sit down at dinner together and I were to tell you everything that's great in my universe, some of you would be like, that's awesome. That's an example of what's possible. And others would be like, what a bitch. She thinks so highly of herself. Gross. It's we have been socialized, especially as women and humans of color, to be like, oh my gosh, I need to lose weight. Oh my gosh, I don't have enough money. Oh my gosh, my partner's being awful. Oh my gosh. It's we have been socialized to connect. I don't even want to say over complaints because complaints are real, but the struggle is almost like a safe presentation to fit into groups. So much more, I think, so much more than I think it stands out when we don't lead with our struggle story. And then also, and just so you know, I'm coming in hot today, fully PMS day, when we give ourselves permission to be like, yeah, it's just kind of shitty and it's okay. I am not my best self today, you guys. There's no serotonin in my body. None. I drank a lot of coffee looking for a dopamine hit. It didn't work. So for me, the struggle story, not glorifying the struggle story, I'm over the struggle story is yeah, I feel shitty. I know that. And I'm going to feel a little bit shitty for probably 72 more hours. And there's nothing inherently wrong. There's no suicidal ideation. There's no crisis. I just don't really have my normal people pleaser buffer and or pink glasses. And I think there's the two ways I'd love to chat with all of you about the struggle story. One is just sometimes I think just identifying this is just not my favorite right now at the end and letting that be true, not what's the word I want, demonizing it or not making it I'm not as happy or zen as I've ever been in my entire life. This is a problem to solve. Not doing that. And then shifting our identity where even though there will be struggle seasons, fundamentally not seeing ourselves as someone who's in struggle so much. I want to go to a marathon example. Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay. New friends, I ran a marathon in 2007. If you're like, wait, is that 16 years ago? The answer is yes. And that means I am a marathoner 16 years ago. No plans to run it again. Here is my point. A marathon, and forgive me, I live in America. It's 26.2 miles. I'm unclear on the kilometers, but 26.2. 40 Ks. Okay, what a better number. Okay, 40 Ks, 26.2 miles. Here's what I remember. Around 21 miles, I was really asking myself some deep life questions. Why am I here? Why? And best part, I was in New York City and I paid raised money with my friends, a significant amount of money in order to be able to participate. And like you had to, well, you didn't have to, I opted in, but like I raised money for Fred's team, Memorial Sloan Kettering's cancer hospital team, like blah, 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 blah. So as I'm just miserable, I was like, why did I do this to myself? I'm stupid, which is not true because I was really happy when I got across the finish line. My point is the struggle, you could look at it from so many different angles because, 40 kilometers, 26.2 miles, you could struggle the whole way. But it was also like, this is literally what I signed up for. It's what I trained for. So even though in my 4.5-hour run, there was a solid 30 minutes that I hated, for the most part, I saw myself as like a victor, not a victim. I saw myself as victorious. It was like, this is what I trained for. This is what I came for, was to meet myself at mile 21 when I was like, I hate this. Are we done yet? Like, non-joyful as it was, we could call it a struggle. It was also like, yeah, but that I signed up for this. I always knew this would be here. And
I love that.
Thank you. And I'm like, what would the marathon have been like if starting step 1 or kilometer 1, I was like, here we go, struggle. A long 4.5 hours.
And I think, so back to what you said earlier, like at the beginning, how in society it's almost encouraged to complain. And there is legitimate complaints, but
yes,
if someone says, how are you? Fine, thanks, or good, or there's no actual interaction wanted, or if someone offloads how they really are and you weren't prepared for that, there's like, oh my goodness. But there's also like, if things are going really well, having a place to be able to share that without, as you said, she's a bit of a bitch, she's on herself. And then the other side of it, like in seasons, there are storms. So you said you're not well at the time recording this. I'm not well at the time recording this. I had a really bad weekend. I don't drink, people, so don't go down that. Right. But I went to the kitchen this morning. I looked at the aftermath of my husband and kids having been in there for 2 days while I have spent the time in bed. And I looked at the absolute total mess that I'd have to clean later. And instead of going to victim mindset, I looked at it all. I was like, thank goodness my kids are at the age now where I don't have to guess, is this chocolate or poo? That one in itself was a giant celebration. I was like, there's been some chocolate consumption happening here. They've had a great time. I will get to it later. Let's go do the podcast. But, there's going to be times where you're just like, this is the worst. And a few years ago, that probably would have been even more worse. So there's always times where there's progression and there's always times that there's backslides, but you just don't have to hang out there.
No, and that's such a great example because it's like, for me, it's such an identity shift. It's like you as the super capable and present with reality, the good and the bad kind of mom. It's like, cool, this is going to take a minute to clean. But as you said, you're like, hey, but at least I'm not worried it's poo. And like, if the identity was like, it's the hardest to be a mom all day, I'm sure your brain would have gone to like, is it poo? And why would they eat chocolate? Like, there's such a different, it makes me think of, I don't have kids, so everybody prepare yourself for a wildly unauthorized guess from somebody without children. But my observation has been, those of you who have multiple kids, it's like the first kid, everything's panic. They sneeze and it's like, let's go to the emergency room. We might need a second opinion. Like, it's that. And by the third kid, you guys are like, they're bleeding from the head, but look, it's a surface wound. And identity wise, the difference is by the third kid, you guys are like, I know what I'm doing. I know my kid is bleeding from the head, but like, I know it's a surface wound, and like, it's a different identity. I've seen enough. I trust myself. I trust what I see. I know the difference between their cries.
Yes. I love that. There's a strip of, it's called Fowl Language Comics. Fowl is in FOWL, the duck. And there's one of that with the first child, as you said, sneeze, emergency room. Third child's like, literally they're holding its severed limb. Like, my leg's fallen off. You'll be fine. There's a Band-Aid in the first aid kit. It can kind of be, and it's also like that with any instance when we pause and think about it. When you're new in business, if something happens, like the first person asks for the refund and you're like, I'm going to die. Or somebody gives you a 1-star review and you're like, this is it. I'm out of business. And then when you speak to a seasoned business person, they're like, oh, this is initiation. You're not really in business.
Welcome.
Somebody asks you for a refund or gives you a bad review. but then there's always new problems, like not in a bad way, but it's kind of like you can have the same old problem over and over again, be stuck in the struggle story, or you can be like, at least I've graduated from that one.
I think that's exactly, I love that you brought it to business because I love to talk about business too. It's one of our things, right? But like, that's exactly it. It's when someone's in the struggle story identity, every mistake is like, oh no, should I be in business? Am I cut out for this? Can I make it? Have I made a horrible mistake? And as we record this, I'm 2 million in business, and I'm like, oh no, I make mistakes every day and expensive ones on a weekly basis. And the difference is my point of view now, and especially I work with my mentor who made 12 million last year, is like, that's just cost of doing business. We're going to make mistakes, and we're not glorifying mistakes. That's not the goal. But it's so interesting to watch how her brain works and how mine is evolving, where it's like, yep, nope, that was a mistake. And like, instead of like, I need to recoup the money or I need to like beat myself up for a week, it's like, yeah, you step in shit, hopefully not twice. And usually not twice, because and I literally live in Texas, we have a lot of versions of shit available. Dogs, horses, cows. You start to catch on. You start to look around differently. Like we live and learn if we're paying attention. And I love that you mentioned that, because it's like, that's the difference. Like, it makes my heart ache when newer people in business are like, I made a bad hire, and they like are flogging themselves. And I'm like, I've made about 9. I'm getting better now. And I'm not done. I intend to grow and expand and serve more people, which means like my days of making mistakes most of them are ahead of me. But the struggle, it's like, no, the struggle is optional. Like, everything gets to be happening to me, which is when I've fallen back into a struggle story, it's happening to me, versus things are happening for me when I am being the version of me who I desire to be most often, which is like, cool, I'm on Earth School. Shit happens. I get to learn from it, or otherwise accept the reality and make it fertilizer, not shit.
I love
fertilizer.
how you put that. You're not glorifying. You're not out looking for it. You're not like, come at me, but you're like, oh, this is the cost of doing business. Or in my world, the thing I say is that was suboptimal. So this weekend gone, I had this big plan of all the things I was going to do. And I was like, this was suboptimal. Like, spending 2 days in bed, totally unplanned. And you could beat yourself up or try and work extra hard. And I was like, yeah, and what do you do then when you flog yourself when you're already feeling poor? You extend it, and what could be 2 days becomes a week, becomes a month, becomes, something extended. So I was like, oh, well, I'll flip around the order of my program. That's just a good thing about being in business for yourself. You can just do whatever you like. But, I think sometimes we get so down on ourselves and so worried about letting people down. And as you said, we're on Earth School. And then there's a level of honesty you have with people. Hey, I got unexpectedly unwell, so things have to shift. Most people and people that I work with are like, fine, no worries. And if they're going to like turn on you or get whatever because you were human, then it's kind of questioning the friendships, relationships, people you're working with anyway. I love the vigorous head nodding happening here, ladies.
The thing is, right, all this is a choice. Now, we can choose to stay in struggle street, but we don't necessarily own that. And this is, I think, the cultural conditioning is heavily in the being a bit oblivious to how much of the way we're making choices. And yeah, you might choose to hire someone that doesn't work out ideally, but what can you learn from that? Well, this characteristic or this little warning sign, maybe next time I'll use that to ask deeper questions or get them to do a trial before committing to anything, well, whatever, you learn from that. And that helps you to then evolve who you are so that you don't need to sit in struggle street. You learn from struggle street instead of, but if you're oblivious to it or you choose to stay there, oh, I've had a really hard week and this didn't go well at work and then this didn't go well at school with my kids or whatever. It's not a literal thing for me, but I had a really busy week. The last week for me was a huge week. There's some really unsettling things in it, but that's how I'm going to be making choices moving forward. So that's exciting in itself. But if I sat in the space of worry, then that's going to be really negatively affecting my physiology, which means that I can't make clear decisions moving forward. And it will, the more you, and I'm not saying to be perfectly positive all the time either, because that shit doesn't work.
It's not possible.
No. And it's not going to help you to solve it next time, but you can reflect and go, well, what can I learn from this?
Can we talk about, because you totally just reminded me, and again, I want to lead with myself as an example. I'm not like, I've seen other people do this. I've found this in myself more than once, probably going to happen again in this lifetime if I live as long as I'd like, repeatedly. But one of the things that I think is the thing is, again, women, people of color, it's like we've been socialized to be martyrs, right? Not just people pleasers, but helpers. So as you were just sharing that, I'm like, oh, right. We haven't necessarily been taught real self-care. So often it's like, I had this at work and the kids that and these 15 things. And instead of being like, hey, I need a hot bath and an early bedtime, even if that means the kitchen's going to be a shit show on like whatever it is, it's like we get the opportunity to learn and put into practice, not just, give, what is it called? Lip service to taking care of ourselves, even when that is inconvenient for other people. And it's like, yeah, the struggle story, the martyr. Oh, these horrible things happened and I still showed up, but I want to tell you about them for half an hour. And also I want you to feel guilty that I'm here because I shouldn't be here. And I've sacrificed my sanity and or health to be here, but I want to make sure you know that so that you can say thank you and I can be martyr and also feel victimized. And it's like, that is the struggle story. And it's so not yet a social norm yet, in my opinion, at least for me yet, working on it, for us to take excellent care of ourselves. And when we really have had, all the struggles where it's like, I just need a timeout, or even asking, I'm going to need 3 hugs an hour, whatever it is. It's like the struggle story is the part of us that has this like, suck it up, buttercup point of view, instead of acknowledging like, I took a hit. I need more support than usual.
I love that example you gave too, especially if it is like meeting somebody for coffee or for a walk or something, and they are, as you said, in their martyr. So then they need to announce their martyrdom to you, and then you're like praising them for being there, but you're not really having a good time. And they would be better off in bed or the bath or having a nap or whatever the fuck else. And nobody wins there. But then you're so worried that if you say to your friend, look, I just can't today, then the story they'll make up about you in their head, which I love how, Serena, you talk about the Byron Katie's the work, your business, the universe or God's business and their business. And it's like, whatever story they make up, like I have a couple of friends who I Vox is a voice message app most days. And over the weekend, I knew they'd be expecting to hear from me. So I just typed something, really unwell, catch up and flip side. Oh, cool. That's okay. So they know that like I haven't fallen off the planet. They don't need to like sort out, do I need to do a wellness check, something like that. But, or if we'd planned to meet like this morning, we were recording this and I was umming and ahhing and I was like, oh, both of you guys have been like, fine, we can record it another time. But and I think for people pleasers, martyrs, we are so worried what other people are going to think. And some people, they will have thoughts. But what always amuses me the most is when I share something purely that I think is amusing, because I have a dark sense of humor, how sometimes it gets back to me. Somebody's thought I've shared that because it's a dig at them or whatever. I'm like, you didn't even enter my mind. So we can't predict this. And then when that happens, it's like, I'm just too much in my own head. Like I remember sharing, my favorite meme is the fish and family get bad after 3 days. It's a joke. And
the best.
Somebody took offense to it. And I was like, offense can never be given, only taken. So, if you're so afraid of not being you because of what people are going to think and how they benefit from this situation, then sometimes it's just a matter of doing some, reevaluations. It doesn't mean you need to go and cut everybody out. It just needs to be some, communication and deciding how much you feel comfortable sharing. So like my friends, I'm having introvert day. They're like, oh, that's just Suzanne. That's how she is. But if they're going to be offended by that, it's like, we're not really matched, because sometimes I've mummed all day. I've got nothing left to people.
That part.
Yeah.
Can we also talk about how the struggle story shows up in money?
Oh, yes. Take it away.
I love to talk about money. I was, for your community who I haven't met yet, hey y'all, I was mostly broke for 40 years, my first 40 years. And I grew up in a family that wasn't, wealthy per se, but like there was never food scarcity. Privilege, there was never like, where will we live? No version of that. None. It was just I think, very typical middle-class America, private school when I was younger, not for middle school and high school. Like college was never, obviously I was going to go to college, like that. So we weren't poor, but like the story was always, money doesn't grow on trees, and you should be saving up for retirement. Like these are all the priorities, never be in debt. And it's so interesting to me because so much of that, and like, guys, this isn't all horrific information, but like there's such a struggle story built in to like saving up for retirement is how you're supposed to live your first 60 years. Like at 61 at retirement, you can then really start to live. Like I question that.
I think
I
it's
opted
70
out.
odd in Australia now. The legal retirement age has been pushed back. So it's like
Yeah,
70
it
odd
gets
years.
later. Yeah, it's like 65, then 67. It depends what year you're born. They're pushing it later and later.
And same here. And just to be clear, my mom, who I love and adore, is 73 and still working. And granted, she has her own business, but I assure you it's a workaholic vibe.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like she has her own business and still paperwork 7 days a week. And I'm like, this is the struggle story. I love my mom. I'm pretty sure she hasn't figured out how to find me on podcasts. So that's helpful. But my point is, pretty sure we'll find out when she does. Pretty sure it's everything we're talking about. It's a struggle story. Like they have enough money for her and my stepdad to not need to work unless they live to be 200. And fun fact, I'm making a lot of money. But the struggle story is, we got to work at least until I'm thinking they'll probably both try to like simmer down at 80. And it's such a puritanical like patriarchy concept. And when I look back on my struggle story with money, it was like there was always enough. It was always enough, but always just enough. And it was a way for me to act out. I was totally unconscious. If you told me this before I woke up, I'd be very, very angry with you, and I would be victimized by your words. Offense would be taken. It would have been that. But now I know a few new tricks. Yay, coaching. All to say, it was a way for me to live out my struggle story, right? Oh, I'd love to go to that party, but I don't have enough money to buy a dress and bring a post gift, so I can't go. It was a way for me to limit myself so many times. And even when I was newly home in Texas after college, I ended up in New York City for 10 years, and I came home, and I can remember a friend inviting me to go out for coffee. And granted, I was busy being actively broke, but like, I want to illustrate the struggle story was I'd love to meet Erica for coffee, but like then she'll want to get a meal afterwards. And like, I super don't have the money. I can't. So it was like, that was my way, always having just enough paycheck to paycheck, getting to worry about making the car note, getting to worry about, oh God, does the car need to be in the shop? Getting to be like, no, I'd love to go on vacation with my friends, but I can't. It was like this way unconsciously that I was like Cinderella before the prince, that unconsciously I was constantly, oh, I'd love to, but I can't because I don't have any money. And it hadn't occurred to me that I could learn. It didn't occur to me to look at all of the very mediocre men in my universe making piles of money. It didn't occur to me that I could learn how to make more money. And then it was probably a receiving issue and a worthiness issue, but like it was a way to, I think so many humans are living out, and obviously unconsciously, none of us want to do this on purpose. I had no idea. But like a stay small struggle story with our finances. So I would, but, and then insert 5 different, my partner said this, my parents said that, I won't use my credit. What would the neighbors think? Thoughts and feelings.
That. And also, because in your program, so Serena's got a program called the Boom Boom Room, which we'll ask her about later, but it's not restricted to only entrepreneurs. Because what I've found is a lot of my friends and or clients who aren't entrepreneurs, when we touch on money, it's not my main coaching thing. So I would always recommend them to Serena or someone else. But, in coaching, we touch on many different areas that people in a job, like an employed job, would be like, but that's it. I can't get any more. Like I work a 9 to 5, I get paid this much per hour. And it's easy for you to say, Suzanne, you're an entrepreneur. But what I want to highlight for anyone listening, and I can feel people getting pissed off, it's okay, I can handle your annoyance, is how many areas in life do we blame our circumstances? So I will name myself here. So during COVID, in the very long lockdowns, Sydney had the longest single extended lockdown in the world of 114 days or 120 days or something. I blamed everything on my kids. I had what would they have been? 5 and 7-year-old. Like everyone was like, introverts must love it. I'm like, no, introverts want to be alone. We're not allowed more than 5 kilometers from our front door. I don't have anybody here. Like I want to be alone. Anyway, I'm not saying I don't love my children, but I blamed everything if I didn't have kids. And then one of my actual clients said this to me, which I loved. She was like, having kids gives you such an advantage in this long lockdown. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, well, you have to have set meal times. You have to have exercise. You have to have some form of structure in your life. She's like, I'm single. I'm still in my pajamas at 10 p.m. I'm living on cereal and I haven't got out of bed. And I was like, oh my goodness. So here I was thinking, if I didn't have kids, I could do all this stuff. And I was like, I probably would have been. She's like, if I'd had kids. So it was this flip side, the flip thing of the exact same problem. And I think we have this with money too. Like, I can only ever have just enough. How often do we inadvertently sabotage ourselves? Like, I know if I was trying to save in the past, as soon as I had a little nest egg, then my washing machine would break, or my fridge, or my vacuum cleaner, an exact amount of money that I'd squirreled away. And it didn't occur to me for ages that perhaps the bottom line in this problem situation is me.
I mean, it pisses people off all day when I'm like, that's money mindset, Suzanne, which I know you're in my program, but it's like your energy, your brain, in your universe, it was like, this is the amount we can have. So just what you said, when you squirreled it away and we're over that amount, it's like magically, wink, wink, something came to take it away.
Exactly.
To meet you at that time, what was your upper limit. And definitely an advantage that my universe was very much freelance, but very much corporate at the same time. Like, before I really woke up and then fell into love with money and money mindset, it was corporate. And to your point, that was a part of my wake up, was noticing, like, I came up with peers who were suddenly making 4x what I was making, and they weren't superior creatures to me. We're all human. Nobody is superior or inferior, just so we're clear. And I also need to like rally on, I'm not here like charge your worth. We're all valuable and lovable beyond measure. We cannot charge our worth. That is not a possibility. We can, however, charge more. But our worth is beyond measure. Our worth is beyond measure. So I'm not on the team of like, charge your worth. I'm like, nobody can afford that. I'm saying it was helpful to me when I realized and looked around. It's like, why are some of the peers I came up with like making honestly 4 times as much as me? And it's like, well, I didn't have an answer then. And in hindsight, knowing money mindset as I do, that is the reason that even some yoga teachers, are like, well, I'm a yoga teacher, I could never make money. And I actually live in Austin, Texas. And if any of you have ever seen Yoga with Adrienne on YouTube, and she has millions of followers and makes piles of money, not from a greedy space, but she literally made a yoga YouTube channel to give free yoga to people. And since millions of people watch Yoga with Adrienne, she has sponsorships and opportunities. My point being, people are like, yoga teachers can't make money. I'm like, except for that chick who lives in Austin.
Yeah,
and
well,
that Sean Horn chick.
Say that too. So
and all of the others.
In the lockdowns here, the CPR, like in Australia, if you have a job that you need a CPR accreditation, you have to redo it. I think it's every 2 years. Don't yell at me, people, if I'm wrong. But a lot of the places were like, well, how can we teach this? We're literally locked down. We cannot leave. So people were like, my business is going to go under and all this sort of stuff. There was this one lady and she was like, I could teach this online and I could post out the little Annie dummy things and people could video themselves doing it and send it back in for a thing. So she actually managed to literally more than 10x her business, because instead of just being able to teach CPR in her local area, she could teach CPR Australia-wide. And because everybody else would be like, we can't do this, close down, but people are like, I still need this for workplaces. Like my husband's an engineer. He often had to go in. They need somebody on site. We need to keep the lights on, people. So if those 2 years have been up, they're not allowed on site. And there was this, so this lady actually managed to take a market where everyone else was like, I'm quitting. And same with beauticians and stuff who did similar to Yoga with Adrienne, make videos of themselves putting their makeup on and tutorials, and then get sponsorship and watching. And, so whatever your thing is, like when you were saying too, Serena, about in corporate, people who started at the same time as you end up so much more money. Did they have the stones to ask for a raise? Did they like, because so often you just
That's
kind
exactly
of
right.
expect people will kind of notice, I'll just work harder and harder and harder and then they'll give me the raise. And it's actually usually the opposite. If she's going to do all this for that, great.
That's exactly my point. That's exactly it. My struggle story was just like, thanks for hiring me. Thanks for this job. And I'm just going to over deliver and be phenomenal. And magically someday they will reward me. And when I would look at my peers, I don't think a lot of them over-delivered anywhere near my level. The difference was if they got the title, not once, but twice. This is actually a story I've told a lot this week, but it's a true story. Not once, but twice in my corporate time, I left a job after threatening for however many months, and they hired 2 people to replace me. I repeat, 2 people ended up hired to replace me. Not once, but twice. Who is the common denominator thread in this equation? Me. That was the problem. Exactly what you said. And it's like, oh, so when I noticed my peers making more money, or sometimes even just having higher titles back when I was doing corporate things, it's because they insisted on that, not from a demanding place, but certainly not from a let me perpetuate my struggle story space. It was like, I can do that for you. This is what it's going to cost. And then little sweet Serena was over there being like, thank you for hiring me. I can start on Monday. No, it's okay to cancel my vacation. Okay.
I did that actually in one of the jobs I had, canceled my vacation to start on Monday. I got the interview. I did the interview in October. Didn't hear back because I thought, oh, well, I haven't had this job. Then on like was the 1st of March, because the 3rd of March was Jeremy's birthday. So the 1st of March, we get the call, can you start on the 3rd? We'd just booked a holiday. And I was like, oh my gosh. Well, so I cancelled. My husband, he understood. But, I can see now I'd be like, sure, I can start in 2 weeks. But, and then when I started, I was like, so I interviewed for this job in October. It's now March. Did they hire someone else who didn't work out? I was purely curious. And they're like, oh no, it's the government. They're just really slow. So if they waited 5 months, they could have waited another 2 weeks.
Easily. Yeah.
But in our eagerness to please, then sure, I can do this, instead of like, we don't negotiate at all. And as you said, it's not being demanding or whatever. It's just saying, I have this thing booked. Or even when you're looking to ask for a pay rise or something, you don't be demanding or make up, I've got these offers, or say something that's really gross, but just even initiating the conversation and not just kind of hoping that you'll do more and you'll get recognized.
Nope, that's it. That was my passive. And I think that's, again, the struggle story, martyr story. It's like this passive, I'll be so good, they can't resist seeing me. And that's just such a different thing than having standards and being like, hey, I'm really happy to do X, Y, and Z, but this is what it's going to take for me. And if not, we don't make them wrong because we're in our own personal, radical, loving responsibility, but if not, it's like, oh yeah, I asked for this. They said, no problem. I'm going to find someone who's into that. Instead of like, they said no, back to my struggle story. It's not happening. Like, go find someone who says yes.
I love that. They said no. And sometimes we tie that as that's our only link. Like, imagine if you thought your only way that you could get money was by winning Tats Lotto. So you're like, oh, I lost. Oh, I lost. And what are the chances of winning that? Like 1 in 380 million or something of winning the number one. And I think when we are so tied to this is the only way, and I think what helps ease you out of that for anyone who's stuck in that mindset, where else in your life have you done something? Could be back to marathon running like Serena. I'm sure your marathon didn't end up how you planned, your training or on the day, or parenting. Like, if only I was the parent I thought I'd be before I had kids.
So good, right?
Even business, marriage, anything in your life, have a look at, have you done it exactly the way you had planned and thought and dreamed, or have you just managed to figure it out along the way?
I love that. I love that so much because I'm like, I thought, I guess I was going to build a business, and after 100,000, it was all going to be easy breezy, lemon squeezy. And like, I don't know, I'd be on vacation on a yacht. I don't know what I thought, but it's definitely, and like, I love this business. This is another terabit on this week. I don't know what happened. Apparently there was an eclipse on Wednesday, but my heart is just torn open. I want to support even more of my clients, even more powerfully. And so now I'm like, I need different and stronger support systems, so, to hold me so that I can hold you. And it's so interesting because it's not a struggle. And I think some people, I've actually had I've had a lot of people in my business, but I have new people in my business, and it's interesting to see it through their eyes. And I think that they've been surprised at my energy levels and my schedules. They're like, oh my God, you have really full days. And it's so interesting because, right, it's a circumstance, but for me, it's not the struggle. And I imagine, again, no kids, but I imagine you parents, on one hand, your kids make you bananas. And on the other hand, there's so much love. You feed them every 2-3 hours for like the first year. What is happening? It's also, you're like, yeah, want to keep it alive. It is a privilege. It is my burning desire. And so it's like, right. I make jokes, but I'm not kidding. I still want kids, and I'm so old, you guys. And I'm like, well, we're going to adopt. And I'm like, I'm going to get 4th graders. That's going to be my requirement. Who sleeps through the night? Do you have siblings? You can live with
Toilet trained, sleep through the night.
That's it. You're going to hate me in 5 years? No problem. That's just on schedule. I won't take it personally, but like, it's like a joke, but it's not a joke. I'm like, listen, I've aged out of the ability to want to be up every 2 hours for 6 months to a year. Nothing wrong with that. Just saying, I'm aware, but it's like, oh, so many struggles are optional, because I could be telling myself the story of like, I have to want to adopt a baby, or I have to want to adopt a toddler. And I'm like, listen, when it's time to adopt, ideally with a husband, I don't have to want to adopt a baby.
But I love that mention back to the eclipse, which was a random side note, but it stood out to me. So where we live, we were just on the edge of where you'd be able to see the eclipse, and it was during the day here. I know it would have been late at night for you. So the kids and I, we watched these videos about how to make the little eclipse thingamajiggers, and we were all set and we're all planned, and we're like, yes. It was cloudy.
No. Oh my
So
God.
this is the thing about the struggle story. The kids were bereft. They're like, we're never going to see an eclipse again. Oh my goodness. And I was like, now we know what to do for next time. So here we are Googling, and apparently there's going to be the full eclipse in Sydney in like 2025 or whatever, 2026. What if we don't live here then? I'm like, we will see one somewhere. And in the meantime, thank goodness for Google. Apparently it was clear skies in WA. So we just Googled other places and looked at their eclipses as well. So I think for anything in life, it doesn't always turn out exactly as you thought, but who did you become on the way in your preparation and the connection that you had with the people that you're preparing with, rather than, well, we didn't get to see the eclipse, so we failed. And, you know, it's like, oh, well, next time we know what to do.
I mean, that's it in a nutshell, right? I love that you mentioned it's the connection and what I learned and who I've become. It's the identity.
Kristan's got something. I can see it swirling.
I did, but now I've forgotten. It was a little while ago and I've just been biding my time. So as you were. On the eclipse though, I didn't even know about it until Suze mentioned something in a Vox message. I had no idea. I worked through the whole day and had things on, and then Suze mentioned it to me and someone else, and I'm like, oh, there was an eclipse. Right.
We were only on the edges of it. You probably would have been too. So we would only seen part of it. So I was trying to explain to the kids, you need to be under the line of it. But WA, they saw like the full thing. So then I was Googling when's the full one in Sydney. Anyways, Anthony's already marked me into my Google Calendar, so we're set. But I'll laugh if we're not living in Sydney by then. But anyway, there will be a time that she will get to see it. So
they happen every so often. It's not going to, and I guess within this space of what we're talking about, sitting in the struggle street, the choice could be to sit there, but you've just coached your kids to go, hey, this is not ideal. The clouds blocked us from seeing it, but there's other choices. And so often we can sit in that space and, again, not learn from it. But generally, like what you were saying about the money mindset and the, like everything you've been talking about generally, Serena, I totally can see that in my own life and that of others around me who I care for and all the rest of it, because it's just so ingrained, and it gets passed down. Speaking of little kids, it gets passed down from a really young age when they've got no idea. It's that early imprinting. So by the time they are more conscious of the choices they're making, they're not conscious at all. And that's just how generational things happen. But what I've chosen to do in and around money is very different from both sides, or my husband and I. It's really different from what both of our parents have done. We have our retirement through our superannuation, but it's not that we've suddenly found ourselves here and gone, we're just going to change our lives. But at the same time, it is, because it's not what we've been conditioned to through both of our independent childhoods and our teenage years and our early 20s sort of together when we then got married and stuff. It's just, we went, well, this isn't really working for us. How about we do this? Maybe that might work. Oh, look, this works really well. And we couldn't do what we wanted to do initially because of the bank setup and the mortgage and whatever. But we gradually worked away at it. And then when we sold our old house we'd been renting it out and sell it during the early parts of the pandemic. Oh, that was fun. But that freed us so much to be able to make different choices. And then it can be easy to sort that stuff out once. I don't know, for us, it was, we knew what we wanted to do. It just took a bit of time to make it happen. We didn't have to keep doing it the other way.
And I love that. Like, we knew what we wanted. Like, I think so often when we have a vision, either ourselves or with our partner or whatever, and then other people won't agree with our vision or won't understand it, or it's not commonplace. So you can get ourselves talked out of it because, oh, like this could happen or that could happen. But then, as you know, Serena said at the beginning, or you just alluded to that, so the other choice is to squirrel everything away until we're 60 or 70, and then finally, and then even then, then some people question like spending the kids' retirement or whatever. And I'm like, I'm self-made. You can be too.
I just want to support that so much. This is an argument happening in my family. Again, hopefully they still haven't found my podcasting, but like literally it's an argument. So my grandmother's like 90 now, and back when I'm sorry, she's 96 now. It was 90 when she started to slow down. And I remember like hanging out with her and we were going to the supermarket and she was shopping for ice cream by coupon. And it was just when I was like starting to wake up to money mindset. And I got really mad, and I still am, to be honest, because she and my grandfather built. So I don't know how much cash they're sitting on. It's none of my business, but this is the argument. She's right now in a assisted living center. And, people are like, oh, it's X amount a month. And I'm like, fine. And it's like, well, she wants to leave an inheritance. No, both of her adult kids are fine. Her grandkids are fine. We're fine. Stay. In fact, I'd like her to have an Ocean View one, which is never going to happen. But like when she was shopping for ice cream by coupon, I was like, lady, you're like in your late 80s and you and my grandfather spent literally 60 something years where he worked nights and weekends, and they bought houses that they redid, and they were 3 family units. So he worked in the factory exactly all day. And then nights and weekends would take care of the tenants and physical. And I'm like, none of that was for you to use a coupon and shop by coupon, be limited. She was like, I would never buy ice cream without a coupon. And I'm thinking there's got to be $1 million cash, probably more like 3, all of which is irrelevant. But my point is, it just killed me. It was like my desire for her, and I suspect my late grandfather's desire for her, is whatever ice cream you want. She couldn't outspend the inheritance based on ice cream. And yet
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You're fine. It's like, but living from the limitations. And it's like all of our ancestors really, really, really struggled. So I want to be respectful, but it's like, I think we honor their struggle by opting out of the story that is no longer true.
How often, that story reminds me how often we live out something because it's inherited. So there's the book called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks, and there's a chapter in there quite close to the beginning where this gentleman is very high in computing or some industry, I can't remember, and his wife, he complained about the brand of toilet paper that she bought.
Toilet paper. He was in banking.
Yes. And anyway, so his coach, Kristan's got the book, I'm holding it. I've got the book, I've got an Audible, I've got it on my Kindle. I read it every 6 months. That book is like, I love it.
Gold.
It is so many lessons each time. But he was like, he did the maths with this person, and she could buy literally the top ultra grade of toilet paper for however long on what they already had, and he could bankroll it. Like, and the other thing too with it was, he the same person with the printer? No, so there's another chapter in the story, and I loved it. And he's like, he gets paid, he charges out at like 10 grand an hour or something. Yep. And he bought this printer, and he decided he would install it himself. And I'm laughing because before we hit record, Serena, you were telling us about your TaskRabbit who comes in and does your house stuff. So it's like, what happened was he didn't know how to do it, and he spent like 10 hours and he couldn't get it hooked up and all this sort of thing. And in the end, he hired some kid, like a neighborhood kid, and paid him, I don't know, like $100 and did it. And the guy was like, so you charge out $10,000 an hour, and it took you 10 hours to do this. So how often in life do we like, your podcast recently, Serena, I think somewhere you spoke about grocery shopping. Like when you go to the grocery store, there's the time to drive there, to park, to go get all the stuff, to get all the, I've got to have, because, eyes, stomachs, shopping, all this other stuff, all this
displays, marketing.
Versus paying somebody to do it. Because a lot of people go, I don't want to pay, delivery. And it's like, but you don't have to. For me, it's like, I don't have to get my kids into the car, listen to the 50 things they want, get my kids. It's just great. Someone else do it. Yes, please.
This is literally the concept of holy wow money, meaning, again, it's not about accumulation. It's about creation. And to your exact point, I don't have kids, but I don't go to the store, because that hour saved with me either on the couch or taking a hot bath, like whatever it is, or more than an hour, just so we're honest, like no way does it not save me money every single time just based on the bullshit I don't buy. And that may just be me, but like 100% I save money every single time, because it's like, I need broccoli, I need meat, I need yogurt, and that's actually what comes home, and not the 72,000 of things that I didn't eat that were overpriced and are junk food, and also would like ruin my mood for weeks to come. So there's that savings. But then there's the like, sure, so if I'm spending $20 between fee and tip, or 25 if we want to be wild about it, probably not, but let's pretend. Yeah, we cut up my hourly rate, it's a lot more than 25. And we've got this culture that overworks and we overexhaust ourselves. And then, at least for me, when I'm overtired is when I really overeat and make horrible choices, which then impact me at least for a day. Best case scenario, I wake up with a sugar hangover. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario, I feel shitty for 36 or 48 hours. And so it's like, it's so easy to be like, it's just an hour, I could just do that on Tuesday night. But it's like, can we also factor in not just that somebody's trying to make money doing that job. So let me support them in them getting paid and what they want to do for whatever the reasons, whatever that reason is. But separately, it's like, it's not just an hour. Like how we're so often so burned out and short tempered is just an hour this, just an hour that, when it's like, shave that off your calendar and watch how, even how much more even keeled we can be and making long-term decisions and more connected to our loved ones and more present for our loved ones because more present with ourselves.
I love that. And to that point too, so a lot of my clients are mums, not all of them, but a lot. And they say to me, well, that's my me time. And I'm like, hold up. Grocery shopping is your me time. We need to have a discussion about this. So after discussing and them telling me all the reasons it is and whatever, a lot of them now, I don't know if you have it over there, Serena, but here we have this like bag to boot, or because we don't call it a trunk, we call it a boot, or click and collect, where you order it all online, you drive, they bring it in. So what happens is they still get their hour and they order their click and collect, then they drive there, have a massage or a facial or get their nails done or whatever else it is. So they're still having their me time, but it's actual me time. They're not walking around the supermarket saying this is a break, because seriously, it is not. It's a basic human need to have food. Walking around a supermarket, if that is your me time, and if you don't want to spend money, because some people don't, so like whatever, go for a walk. Have a cup of tea, sit in the sun and read a book.
Sit in the park and go and not beat it around your kids or whatever else. Could be anything. Doesn't have to cost.
Yeah, so you can do that actual me time. Go to the library, like, I don't know, go for a swim, but do something. So that's actually true replenishing time. Your groceries are being picked up. All you need to do is drive your car there. And I seriously do that heaps. I absolutely love it because I get that actual me time and not trying to tell myself that grocery shopping is me time, because it's not.
Yes. Everything you just said. I love that it's like, even if spending an extra penny is absolutely out of the equation, just sitting in the park or just sitting in the car in silence, like that is me time, as opposed to, a task that it's good if someone's like, I like that task, but I'm like, still a task. To your point, it's still doing, working, even if it's preferential. Yeah, I can see how that ties to struggle story so much. And at least for me, and I witnessed this again with my mom, she was an entrepreneur in the 80s and like owner operator, but like also did all the cooking, all of the cleaning. And to me, that's just bananas. And it's like, right, because her mom was a stay-at-home mom. So she was like, this is how I have to take care of my kids I love and my husband. And I'm like, so you work, 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. and then the cooking and then the cleaning, and with so much love. Like, obviously she did it with so much love, but it's like, again, I don't have kids, but I'll use my little brother and his wife as an example. They both work full time and they share household duties at a level that I've not seen before. And I love it so much. As in, they're both like, yep, we both work. And therefore, this one's in charge of this, that one's in charge of this. It's not just like Amy has to do everything. No, Amy's available to do everything if she's not going to work. And since she does go to work, there's this shared responsibility. And I think it takes us home to the struggle story. It's like such a social norm. What is a good mom? Does everything. And if she's an entrepreneur, she should also be doing everything. And if she's a corporate queen, she should still be doing everything. And it's like, no, let's opt out and be like, some things are going to get farmed out because that actually supports her.
I love that.
Which supports everyone.
Well, we could talk to you all day, Serena, but thank you. This has been
I'd hang
fabulous.
out.
We really appreciate your time. How can people find you?
Hey, people, please find me on my website, serenahicks.com. It's spelled Serena like the tennis player. So it's S like Sam, E like Edward, R, E like Edward, N like Nancy, A like Apple. Hicks is Hicks, serenahicks.com. I'm really active on Instagram and on Facebook. And whenever you're listening to this, I'm going through a masterclass kick. So I'm teaching a concept that I call proper pricing. And it's, just so we're clear, proper pricing is what happens when you stop trying to prove your value at work, whether that's a corporate setting or as an entrepreneur, and instead you become truly aware of your work's value. So you're not proving, and the idea of getting paid for it and receiving is like just sort of a no-brainer in the best way. So if you go to my website or if you click on my LinkedIn profile on Instagram, you will find how to register for these free trainings that I'm doing online. I hope you'll join. Also, the Boom Boom Room and Suze is in the Boom Boom Room, and I'm a big fan. It's where we take patriarchal programming and we make it go boom, as in bye-bye. And it is a community of love-led, inclusive humans. We have women, we have men, we have non-binary humans. And our shared value system is more creates more for all and supporting each other. So it's a space where people normalize celebrating, not bragging as bad, but seeing like, oh, just like we've normalized a struggle story, we can normalize our wins. And it's a space where people support each other in believing that they can also make more money without having to work more too, and feel good about it. And so, yeah, find me at serenahicks.com. Come play in the Boom Boom Room. And I also have a podcast called Holy Wow Money.
Oh, it's got a new name.
You know what's so funny? Thank you. It's the third name, you guys, but here's the deal. I talk about Holy Wow Money, and it was like Serena Hicks is talking about money again, but I'm like, you know what? It's just Holy Wow Money. Like, let's just make life easier for everyone.
I love that so much. And for anyone listening, Serena's masterclasses are fire. She teaches them live. She's boundaried as fuck, which I love. So they are usually available for 24 hours, sometimes a little bit longer. So get on them. Or if you're like, ugh, the deadline kind of kills me, jump in the Boom Boom Room, because all the old ones are there available for immediate access. And the most recent one at the time of recording that I've listened to was How to Stop Attracting Cheap Ass Clients, which I love because it had kind of swear word in the title almost. And you were saying how you got banned from ads, but you were not banned, but you had to be careful with the wording of ass. Anywho, says it like it is, direct, funny, love it, highly recommended.
Thank you. I love the Boom Boom Room. We've got money mindset trainings. We've got Holy Well Money talk. We there's so much in there. Proper pricing training and workbook is in there. But what's so fascinating is I'm like, I think some people are going to start buying just to get webinar replays, just 100%. To have lifetime access. I just didn't expect that. It's so funny how our business, again, whether entrepreneur or corporate, how it's like it's its own entity, how it grows, and it's like, oh, I didn't see that coming. Okay.
It's positioning, and it's, yeah, as I said, I love the boundaries of it's available for this period of time, because sometimes live is hard for time zones. Like, you're in Texas, we're in Australia, so you not that you're not worth getting up at 2 a.m. for.
I mean, I don't 2 a.m. is hard. You're the reason I have replays, is my Australia people. We have Australian. New Zealand. Thank you. You guys are the ones I'm like, okay, we're gonna do replays. Also, I had a dude from Japan be like, I really want to watch your stuff. Help. And I'm like, okay, there's our replay for 24 hours. It's a 1-hour event.
I love it.
If you're really into it, it's available for free for 24 hours or so.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today, Serena. And if you've enjoyed listening to this, please leave us a rating or a review. We'd prefer a review, but 5-star Uber like the cred. We'll totally accept that. Anything you want to say before we wrap up, Kristan?
You've both covered it beautifully.
Love it. Awesome. We'll see you on the next one. Bye for now.
Bye.